If we had had the compact in place for the last several election cycles, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Al Gore would have been awarded all 7 of Oklahoma's electoral college votes without having won a single county in the state of Oklahoma.
On November the 15th, in Oklahoma City at the state capitol, Oklahomans for Health and Parental Rights, OKHPR, is holding a stand together at the Capitol Day. That's going to be the first day of the special session for our legislature. And it's important that we go there and we let our legislature know that we stand for the Constitution, we stand for individual rights, we stand for personal responsibility, and that we don't believe that it's right that businesses can fire you for refusing to accept the vaccine. We believe, or I believe, that that's a personal choice. And it's not any of my business whether you've been vaccinated, and it's not any of your business whether I've been vaccinated. And I think if we would just kind of maintain that attitude, we might all get along a little bit better. But this is another way that they found that they can divide us. If they can't divide us by color, and they can't divide us by sexual orientation, or political affiliation, or where you go to church, then now it's, you know, you didn't wear the mask, so you're in trouble for that, or the vaccination now. And so any way that they can try and divide us, they're going to, and I think we need to resist those efforts as much as we possibly can. So I would like to put together a group of people that might like to carpool. It's an all-day event at the state capitol, so bring a lunch. But I'd like to carpool to the Capitol because I think it's important that we have a huge showing at the state Capitol on that day, that the legislature will hear our voices and see that we mean business. So if anybody has any questions about that, come and see me after. In November, our guest speaker is going to be State Auditor Cindy Byrd. In December, it's going to be Representative Jay Stiegel. And in January, we have Rebecca Warwick with the Heritage Foundation that's going to come. We've also got, I think it's around December 7th, we're going to do a big joint with the different conservative and Republican groups and the party. We're going to have a big Christmas party. And so just where we can get together and have fun and just get to know one another, because so often we're so busy and caught up in things that are going on and happening that we forget to stop and maybe get to know somebody. And there's a lot of really neat people in the party that I think that we would benefit from getting to know. The state fair, I am going to give you a report on the state fair. Who volunteered to work the state fair? Well, I know you guys volunteered, but you weren't able to, but yes. Listen, it was great. You guys did a phenomenal job. You deserve a huge pat on your back. It took probably 50 to 75 people to make that happen. We had an amazing booth. We had an amazing little general in Glenda Mims. She kept us all in line, and it was very successful. We ended up making some money off of it, and we've got merchandise to sell from out of the office. So thanks to everybody that, whether you helped us in the planning, whether you helped us in setting up, tearing down, or showed up and worked a shift or two, thank you. But we had a good time. Did everybody have fun? Yeah. Okay. We had sniffing Joe Biden. Yeah, that was fun. So, does anybody have anything else you want me to talk about, or you have any questions that you want to ask? No? Nothing about anything that's going on? We're just going to go straight, yes, sir. The tickets are $100 a piece, And they, like I say, it benefits the Tulsa Republican Party. I would write your state rep and your state senator, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to put the pressure on the governor to be able to add to what the special session is about. The special session right now is going to deal with redistricting and maybe one or two other small things, but they're only expected to do it for about a week. And so we need them in there, and we need them to protect the citizens of Oklahoma from, while I understand, I heard his comments today. He doesn't want to try and tell companies what they can do and what they can't do. But in my personal opinion, the only role of government is to protect my liberties. It's not to protect my health, and it's to protect my liberties. And my liberties include the right to be able to go to work and earn a living for my family. So, does anybody disagree? You want to wrestle? Okay. The subject of national popular vote is rearing its ugly head again, and it does this every couple of years when people think that going by whoever gets the most votes wins. They think that that's the fair way. They're going to try and tell you that it's going to make us less of a flyover state, when all of that is nothing but lies. And I became acquainted with Lori Hendricks probably back about 2010. And in that time, we have fought many battles together, national popular vote being one of them. Another one was, you guys remember when they wanted to try and change the what was it called, Super Tuesday? Super Tuesday, they wanted to try and make it where we voted later, and which would have made us inconsequential, actually. So we fought that. We fought numerous battles. She is the clerk, the county clerk. I know, but I keep wanting to say court, and I know you're not. She's the county clerk for Wagner County. She has served since 2012.
Yeah, appointed in 2011 and elected
in 2012. And she does a phenomenal job of fighting for our liberties, of doing her job in Wagner County, and I hear she's a pretty good grandma too. So please join me in welcoming Lori Hendricks.
Thank you. Rhonda is one of my very favorite battle buddies. Love you dearly. So how many of you heard of the national popular vote? Everybody knows what national popular vote is. How many of you have heard of the compact? Yes, we know, David back there. Okay.
Is that where a certain number of states decide that if they can get X number of states to agree to it, they'll just bypass it?
Yes. The compact, it's an interstate agreement between states. It would become effective only when enough states that have 270 electoral votes, which is how much it takes to elect the president, sign on to the compact. It's identical legislation. It is intended to be a loophole in the Constitution. Once enacted, has the same effect of amending the Constitution without actually going through the process of amending the Constitution. And yes, you did read that right. What that means, if we had had the compact in place for the last several election cycles, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Al Gore would have been awarded all 7 of Oklahoma's electoral college votes without having won a single county in the state of Oklahoma. Our votes in the state of Oklahoma would have been rendered irrelevant. Okay, we're going to do a quick history lesson. Where did they come up with the Electoral College? They had a number of options. They could have had the president and vice president elected directly by the populace. They could have had Congress elect them. They could have had a king. They could have had any number of things, but what they wanted to do was have they were executives of a federation of independent states. And what they did was they went back to ancient Rome. Ancient Rome, their concern was that the wealthy had more influence. They wanted to alleviate that. So they divided up their population into groups of 100. Each group of 100 had one vote. It was called the Centuriate Assembly, and that is their inspiration for our current electoral college. They wanted the states to elect the president and vice president, not the people. It was designed specifically to keep more populous states from overrunning the interest of smaller, more rural states. Think about what we have today. The interests of Philadelphia, New York, California, their interests are very different than ours. We are very agriculture. We have, aviation. We have oil and gas. Their interests are much different than ours. James Madison, who's considered to be the father of the Constitution, talked about an interested and overbearing majority. Today, the top populations of the 9 most populous states, California, Texas, New York, Florida, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Georgia, and Michigan, are greater than the remaining 41 combined. This is not a new problem. That problem existed in 1787. According to the 1790 census, the population of Pennsylvania was 360,000. New York was 314,000, but Georgia was only 82,000. It's not a new issue. This is something that has been going on, and this is exactly why we have our electoral college. Okay, here's the arguments. They will tell you that it'll make Oklahoma more relevant. It'll be more important for candidates to take an interest in the state of Oklahoma because they have to win the popular vote nationwide. The truth of the matter is, we have had almost every single candidate for president come to Oklahoma anyway. We can't be more relevant than that. The truth is, it would end nationwide presidential campaigns. They only have to win the top 12 metropolitan areas in order to capture the popular vote. We will never see another presidential candidate here. And it would make the voting impact of Vermont, Wyoming, North and South Dakota the equivalent of Brooklyn, New York, only one of their 5 boroughs. Again, this is what the national popular vote will do, and it is what the Electoral College was intended to prevent. The argument. The National Popular Vote Compact would encourage increased voter turnout since a candidate could no longer win the electoral vote without winning the popular vote. Again, not true. Would have the opposite effect. If you knew that your vote in the state of Oklahoma doesn't matter, every county in Oklahoma has voted red for the last 3 or 4 election cycles, president elections. But knowing that even though Oklahoma is going to vote red, your electoral college votes are going to go blue, are you going to bother to show up? I wouldn't. Or worse, if there are more than 2 candidates, if there's 3 candidates, Ross Perot, anyone? Al Gore won 5 states without having 50% plus 1 and was awarded their electoral college votes. That's even worse. Here's another argument. The electoral college is flawed. It's based on congressional representation. That's determined by the census. But it counts people who don't have the right to vote, people in prison, people who are here illegally, children. Those individuals are counted in the census and therefore are used to make our congressional representation determining what our electoral college votes are. That's a separate issue. It's a completely separate issue. That can be changed also by a constitutional amendment. If you want to change that, if you want to change only those people who are eligible to vote count towards our congressional representation, that's great. We can do that. But again, it takes a constitutional amendment to do it. Furthermore, the Electoral College or the National Popular Vote Compact doesn't even fix that issue. It's completely irrelevant. Here's another argument. Your vote may not count since it's not one person, one vote. So if I vote for the Republican and the Democrat wins my state, then my candidate doesn't get any electoral votes. In a direct election, everyone's vote is counted on a national level. That's their argument. It's fair. It's not fair that if I voted Republican and my state went Democrat, that I'm not represented. Do you understand that argument? We got to unpack that, though. It is one person, one vote. But your vote is not going to elect the president. Your vote is going to determine who your state is going to give their electoral college votes to. You're looking at two different issues. We are voting for our electoral college who they are going to cast their votes for, because it is the state who elects that. If the argument that one vote cancels out another, it's that way in all elections. That's a stupid argument, in my never to be humble opinion. But it's true. One vote does count out another. But it's that way in every single election you'll ever vote in. So not all states are winner take all. Here's what their argument is. Nebraska and Maine both use congressional district method of distribution. I'll give you an example if you don't understand what that is. Oklahoma has 5 congressional districts and 2 senators, so we have 7 electoral college votes. We'll take District 2, for example, Little Dixie, southeastern Oklahoma. Not so much in the presidential election, but in local elections, they're typically, now they've moved a little bit more to the right now, but for a long time they were blue. In the congressional district method of distribution, if District 2 somehow voted for the Democratic candidate, then we would distribute the votes in the state of Oklahoma like this. It would be 4. Districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 went red, so they would go to the Republican candidate. District 2, I'm sorry, we're talking about District 2. 1, 3, 4, and 5. Those electoral votes would go to the Republican candidate. District 2, 1 electoral vote would go to the Democratic candidate. And because the Republican won the popular vote of the state, the 2 senatorial seats would then go to the Republican as well. So it would be 6-1 in that example. But Maine and Nebraska both do it that way. Nebraska has never split their votes. They have that method of distribution, but in every election, the state goes Republican. So they've never done that. This last election cycle, Maine did. They split. That, if you're going to ask my opinion, I think that's a good idea. If we're going to split it up, that's the best way to do it. But the framers never intended for the president to be popularly elected, or the Senate for that matter. That was changed by the 17th Amendment. Did you know that? I know you knew it, David. That's an obvious. But again, they provided for the states to elect the president and the vice president. Okay, here's more controversy. The National Popular Vote Compact provides for the forced recognition of illegal votes in the state of Oklahoma. It literally removes our state sovereignty. Here is my example. California has a motor voter law. Do you know what that is? When you get your driver's license, you are registered to vote. That's great. Except they also provide for driver's license for people who are in this country unlawfully. Do the math. According to the Washington Times, 800,000 illegal immigrants voted in the 2016 election. That's almost 1 million votes. Illegally cast in California. Thank God they only have 55 electoral votes. We can't go beyond that. But if we had the national popular vote, the state of Oklahoma would be forced to recognize those unlawful votes as lawful. Different states will take felons for an example. Some felons in some states never get their right to vote back. Some states say it's for a period of years. Some states say until your term of sentencing is complete. So if you have a 30-year sentence and you serve 20 years of it, for 10 years you won't have your right to vote. After 10 years you will have your right to vote. But it's different in a lot of different states. Again, it would cause Oklahoma to have to recognize those votes as lawful, even though if they were cast in this state, they would be unlawful. So it removes our state sovereignty.
In the state of Oklahoma, if you fulfill your sentence and you don't have any
Right.
Then they can vote.
Sure, but I'm saying same thing for other states. I mean, if another state says that you can never have your right, if you're a convicted felon, you cannot vote here, ours is not set up that way, so they are forced to recognize as lawful the votes that were cast in our state that would be unlawful in their state. So that was the point. Okay, so here's the courts. The courts are definitely going to be all over this. Article 1 specifically requires congressional approval of agreements between the states. That is specific. Article 5 sets out the parameters for amending the Constitution. Article 5 Convention, you've heard of that. That's another topic I'll be happy to come back for. Bad idea. These articles, separately but absolutely collectively, would hold the compact unconstitutional. It is absolutely intended to go around the Constitution without properly amending the Constitution. But here's the worst part. First, there has to be an election, then a lawsuit, and then a decision by the Supreme Court. We've seen what has happened with disputes with elections this time. How did that work for us? So who does this benefit? Since the Civil War, and I say since the Civil War because why? 1860, the Republican Party was started for the specific purpose of abolishing slavery. Okay? First Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. So we say since the Civil War, because before then Republicans didn't exist. The Electoral College has elected a president who did not win the popular vote only 4 times. Rutherford B. Hayes, Benjamin Harrison, George W. Bush, most recently Donald Trump. They are all Republicans. This has never happened. A Democrat has never won the Electoral College without having also won the popular vote. Okay, so but does the Electoral College really work? We'll go back to the most controversial one. I'm looking around the room. I think most of us were here in 2000. The race was between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Gore won the popular vote, but how? He won 13 states. That's it. He won 5 additional states because there was a third candidate in the race and he did not win the full 50% plus 1. But George Bush won 33 states in that election. This is what it looked like. Does this look like Gore won the country? This shows you the states overwhelmingly elected George W. Bush. Happened again in 2016. Hillary Clinton won with 16 states, but again, does it look like she won the country? I'll say no. As an aside, this is funny to me. This is New York. This is where Hillary Clinton is from, and these are the electoral, or not the electoral votes, these are the county results from the state of New York. I'm going to argue she didn't even take the state of New York. If New York City and Albany and those areas were not blue and heavily populated, she would not have even won her home state. Perhaps they need an electoral college there. Yeah. Right? Yes.
California.
And California as well. California is very much the same. California, Northern California, and LA are very blue. The rest of the state is red. So remember how many recounts we had in Florida? Supreme Court had to stop it. How long did that take? Can you imagine if we had the national popular vote and we had a recount? How long would that take? How long have we been auditing 2020? And this is October. Surely Oklahoma would never agree to this. Want to bet? We did. Back in 2014, and this is when Rhonda and I's heads collectively exploded in the cafeteria of the Capitol, SB 906 passed our Senate. Luckily, we came with torches and pitchforks to the Capitol, and we killed it. But it was very close. Anybody want to know who was responsible? Absolutely. And here are their names. Here's the yays. Some of them shocked me. Josh Brecheen. Anybody? Stanislawski, Mazie, Bingman. These are Republicans. These were very popular Republicans. But Dom, solid. But this was who was responsible for this. Many of them recanted after, said, oh, I wasn't sure what I was talking about.
This after their trip.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. Why would these people support this? I'm glad David said that, their trip. He's not wrong. The National Popular Vote Compact people come through the Capitol, they're lobbyists, and they invite them onto educational junkets. I'm going to toss out a name here because we have somebody who is sitting in a very powerful position who went on one of these junkets, and her name is Stephanie Bice. And I took her to task and I asked her, why would you go on a junket, a trip, all expense paid trip? I think it was New York City, but they take them to the Bahamas, to Mexico, to Las Vegas, all expenses paid, and it's just education about the National Popular Vote Compact, and they feed them all of these lies about why it's such a great idea. And they're targeting red states because they have to have red states to get there. And if they get one, that's going to be their talking point forever. Look at Oklahoma, the reddest of the red to the roots. They voted for the National Popular Vote Compact. And the National Popular Vote Compact on their website says we are pending. Pending. That means they think they're this close. But they take them on these all expense paid trips and tell them everything that they want them to hear. And none of what I am telling you. Okay, so where are we now? As of June 2021, they have 195 electoral votes, 72% of what they need. The states they have are California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Washington, Vermont, and the District of Columbia. What do they all have in common? They're Democrat. Colorado is at least purple. They used to be red. What's next? Well, how many of you in this room know how to, when session starts again, go onto the oksenate.gov or okhouse.gov and look up legislation by subject? How many know how to do that? You need to know how to do that. Do I have internet here? Here, I'll just tell you how to do it. You go to advanced bill, you'll go to either one of those websites. You'll go to okhouse.gov or oksenate.gov. At the very top, they've got a thing, bill search legislation. When you click on that, you're going to have a choice, basic bill search or advanced bill search. Go to advanced bill search. Over on the side here, you can search by author. You can search by term. You want to search by subject. Then it's going to bring up another window, and you're going to have an alphabet at the top. Go to E for elections. That's the subject that you want. You need to watch that on a daily basis, and I'm not kidding about that, because they will sneak it in. There will be shell bills. Anything that's a shell bill, I'm going to recommend you get an alert. You can set it up to give you an alert anytime something is changed on those shell bills, because what they'll do is they'll file a shell bill as something benign, completely benign, and then when they're ready to sneak it in, they'll change it. So you need to be watching. I will be watching, and I will tell Rhonda, and you're going to get this email alert, calls needed, urgent action, blah, blah, blah. We have got to make sure that we are, A, watching legislation that is filed, but you also need to have a very good relationship with your state senator and your state representative. I have had conversations with all of them. I'll never forget Scott Fettgatter coming into my office. Well, I'm running for office and I just wanted to talk to you. I said, there are two subjects that are going to be the death of you if you touch them. One is the Article 5 Convention of States, and the other one is the National Popular Vote Compact. And I have told every one of them, not only will I not help you, I will actively recruit and help somebody to run against you if you support this. It is that important. If we get the National Popular Vote Compact, or for some reason they are allowed to alter the Constitution to eliminate that as Hillary Clinton put it, godforsaken electoral college, Oklahomans may as well never vote for president again, because we will never have another Republican president. That's what our marching orders are. So questions, comments? Go ahead.
How can they do this compact when it's obviously illegal? Patently illegal.
It is patently illegal. I agree with you.
The obvious thing would be to do the convention of states.
To do the Convention of States and,
Would be the legal way to do it if they were going to try to do that.
well, we have never had an amendment to the Constitution made through a Convention of States. I believe there's a reason behind that. And part of that is because once a convention, and here's the thing, and God bless Tom Coburn, and God rest his soul. He was a blessing to the state of Oklahoma. But I believe he was wrong on this issue, and here's why. He supported a national convention of states called by the states for the purpose of enacting a balanced budget amendment. You and I, if we have to balance our home budget and we look at our expenditures exceed our income, we have to cut our expenditures. Congress doesn't have to do that. They can raise their income by taxing us. Furthermore, once a convention is called, the Article 5 says for the purpose of proposing amendments. That word is plural. The entire document is up for revision. In 1787, when the founders walked into that room, their sole purpose was for the amendment of the Articles of Confederation. That is what they were called to do. They were not called to write a constitution. I thank God Almighty every day that they did. But their goal was to amend the articles. They didn't do that. They threw out the whole document. I will give you another thing, an argument that they say, well, any amendment to the Constitution has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. Did you know that under the Articles of Confederation, any amendments had to be unanimously ratified? They changed that with our current Constitution. There's nothing saying that they can't say, well, the Senate has to ratify it. They could absolutely do that. And I'm going to give you a marching order here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Article 5 Convention of States because that's not what I was called to talk about. But you need to Google New States Constitution. It is a document that has already been written and proposed. It does away with states altogether. Senators would serve for life.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It adds to the religious freedom is gone. It adds to our right to keep and bear arms. It adds the words when serving in a militia. It is horrifying. We are not the only ones who are calling for an Article 5 convention. The Young Turks are calling for it. George Soros wants one. You need to look at it who is calling for this. It is not a good idea. There's nothing wrong with our Constitution. It needs to be read and followed. Okay, I'm going to stop on that. Go ahead.
Taking questions?
Yes.
I am taking questions.
You have somebody? I'm sorry, I jump in front of everybody.
you're great.
Okay, when for the what are we just talking?
National Popular Vote Compact.
National Popular Vote. What can be done if a state has voted on it, but they changed their mind? What has to be done to get out of it? And is that going to be the same process for Convention of States?
Yes. In fact, Oklahoma has already made the call for the convention. That has passed. That has passed. And I have, with each one of my state representatives and my state senators that touch Wagner County, I am asking them to initiate legislation to rescind that call. It can be done, and they need to rescind that call. We do not need to have that. Go ahead.
It is due for sunset, I think, a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the national or the Convention of States people are back out making
Yep.
the circuit to resell it. Otherwise, the call will sunset, I think 2023.
That's good news. Thank you. Very much. But yes, we have not, it only passed the Senate. And that bill, that was 2014. That bill, Senate Bill 906, actually is dead. But every year, the National Popular Vote Compact people are at the Capitol. They're inviting people on junkets. You need to ask your legislators, have you been on a junket? Ask them. What are your thoughts? What did you learn? Why did you go? Why did you go? Why? And post it on Facebook. The Book of Faces tells a lot of stories. Anyway, but yes, our marching orders are to be vigilant. I think that there are other things that will come up, but this one will have the biggest impact, I think, on the state of Oklahoma as far as our relevancy in our presidential elections. And we need to make sure that we're vigilant. No, that was everybody. You know, Constance Johnson's on there. She's a lot of fun. She really is a nice lady, but she voted for it. I mean, there's all of the Democrats, I think, voted for it. But there were some people, like I said, Josh Burkeen, I was shocked. Gary Stanislawski, I was shocked.
Gary was my state senator years ago. He came to a precinct meeting years ago, and he brought that up. And one of the people at the meeting let him have it.
As well they should.
I mean, really let him have it. And boy, he shut up, and I never heard him again speak it in public.
Well, and I'll tattle on some other people. They have paid Oklahomans to go up there and to lobby on behalf of the National Popular Vote Compact. I had breakfast with two of them trying to get me to help them. That's what tipped me off as to this. Back in 2014 at Oneida Diner, it happened. But it was David Tackett and Darren Gantz. Go ahead.
If the compact is illegal, then whether all 50 states sign it or not, it shouldn't be able to take effect.
I agree. And
So-
again, I'm going to go back. Our Constitution, Article 1 of our Constitution says that Congress has to approve interstate compacts between the states. In Article 5, it lays out the Electoral College and how the president and vice president are to be elected via the Electoral College. Those two articles specifically will hold that this is unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court's not going to take that up arbitrarily. There will have to be a challenge in the courts to an election that put the compact actually into place. Our Congress that we have right now with Nancy, don't you think Nancy Pelosi would love to make an approval on that? Absolutely she would.
Republicans are absolutely useless.
I don't
Our
disagree with that.
Republicans are absolutely useless.
I don't disagree with that.
I'd like to place them in front of the Democrats when we do the firing squad. You know,
Just a well-timed strike of lightning would be fine with me. But, you know, again, it would have to be battled out in the courts. The Supreme Court does not go out seeking legislation by which to determine that it's unconstitutional. It has to be brought through the process to the Supreme Court. They're not going to step out and go, you can't do that. That's not how they operate. That's not how they were intended. It has to go through the court system, but we would have to have an election in order to challenge it. So we have to keep it from going into effect now. And certainly, it's not going to happen in the states that have already adopted the compact because they are blue states and they want to get rid of the Electoral College. Now, obviously, go back to the New York map. I'm sure there's a lot of people in New York and California who don't support it, but because they are blue states, there's never going to be a challenge from within those states. The only saving grace that we may have is if a red state, by some fluke passes the compact and somebody within that state makes a challenge from within that state. But Oklahoma right now has no standing. We have no standing to bring a suit because we're not involved in it and we've not been affected by it. So we don't have standing yet. And again, I believe, certainly with the Supreme Court that we have now, unless they pack the court, the Supreme Court that we have now, I believe, would hold it unconstitutional. I absolutely believe it's unconstitutional. Anything else?
I just want to say that you guys really need to be aware that the Democrats really have their eye on Oklahoma. There's a reason Joy Hoffmeister switched from being Republican to Democrat. Okay? There's a reason that a lot of this stuff is coming up, is to kind of start putting pressure, and they're wanting to use the same model that they used in Colorado to flip it from red to blue. So just be aware. And some of this stuff that tickles our ears, that sounds good, just like when we talk about the Convention of States. They're not following the Constitution we have. Why do we think they're going to follow something new? They're not. And so it's just another way of control and to get rid of the things that we have in there that do protect our rights. It sounds good. Yes, we want a balanced budget. Yes, we want term limits for our U.S. congressmen and senators. But that's not the way that we need to get it, is through a convention of states. What we do there is we roll the dice. And it's a crapshoot, because just as Lori said, when they went in to amend the Articles of Confederation, we came out with the Constitution. We did. And let me tell you, whoever is in charge makes the rules. And so my question, especially in Convention of States, is who's going to represent me? Who's going to be my representative? Are they going to send somebody like a Nathan Dahm up there to be representing me, or are they going to send a weakling like McCall or anybody like that? You know, why would?
Well, not only that, but think about this too. 1787, each delegation, they went as a delegation, and they would go as a delegation again this time, but everybody had the same power. It's one vote per delegation. Do you really think that the more popular states, Florida, Texas, California, New York, Illinois, do you really think they'll sit still for one vote?
No.
They will not. They will not. And they will take over. And that's the thing. We've never had a convention called who makes the rules for the convention. The Constitution doesn't speak to it.
It's going to be whoever participates.
That's
same
correct.
way as who makes the rules for the House and who makes the rules for the Senate are the people that are within that group.
But who's going to determine who the delegates are? I mean, there's so many questions and nobody is thinking about this. And just one more thing, talking about balanced budget. Well, they've extended the debt ceiling again. We have saved our country. We are not going to default on our debt because we raised the debt ceiling. Did nobody ask the question? You could have done it without raising the debt ceiling if you'd cut spending.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking those questions. We have lost the ability to think critically. We can't default on the debt. We can't default on the debt. Well, you're not. Why don't you cut out some of this pork that you've got funding all of these ridiculous programs? Go ahead.
I got you.
I wrote our senators and congressmen and said the best thing they could do for the next 3 years is to go ahead and let the federal government shut down and not accomplish diddly squat as long as the people
I sleep
are
better
there.
when they're not up there. They can't do any damage.
You know, it was about 8 years ago? It came up on my timeline where the government shut down about this time. And that's when Obama, remember, and he was shutting down all the national parks and he shut down everything. Trash wasn't being picked up on the mall. So there was a group of us that flew to D.C. so that we could clean the mall And then we could open the World War II Veteran Memorial so the guys that were coming in that served in, that's right, on these honor flights were able to go in and view their memorial. And it was very moving at that time to have that. But there's nothing wrong with shutting the government down.
What got my goat during that shutdown was they shut down all the government websites too.
Yeah.
Because they can't work either.
Right.
It was crazy. You had your hand up.
Who?
I'm almost afraid sometimes.
David, wait, hang on. Hang on, David.
I forgot what I was going to say. No, it was, there was something. It was good.
Oh, I'm sure.
It always is good.
It's probably brilliant.
I appreciate David so much. David knows more about the Constitution than I ever will. He is awesome, and I appreciate you so much.
I'd just like to comment that what I've observed over the last decades or so is that every time there's been a critical question that has been forced to the front and it's fallen on the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is so fickle that we can't even guarantee anything.
I don't disagree.
The pornography was okayed by the slant of the court. You know, abortion, homosexual marriages, things like that, all reinterpretations of the existing constitutional laws. And I believe that is the greatest threat, is not that they're going to do away with Article 2 or do away with guns or something. They're going to just reinterpret it through the Supreme Court system that it's irrelevant or doesn't matter or doesn't count. And that's the same way that they'll get rid of religion and everything else that stands in the way of totalitarianism. It'll just be reinterpreted
I don't
out of
disagree with
existence.
you. And I'm comfortable saying that because I know where I'm standing. This is a spiritual battle. This is absolutely a spiritual battle. And the church has to stop being fearful. The church has to start preaching biblical principles and voting biblical principles, and they need to start doing it from the pulpit. And if the IRS comes in and says, we're going to take your tax exemption, they need to say, do it. Because they don't, first of all, they don't have the authority to do that. The reason why they continue to do it is because we are in fear. We are in fear, and we have not stood up. It's only going to take one or two pastors to stand up and say, take it. I don't want, you can have your tax exemption. I'm going to preach the word of God without fear. It's a spiritual battle.
So I remembered what I was going to say, and it goes back to your spending.
Yes.
I don't think people understand that the vast majority of both the federal and every single state budget is socialism. Do you know that 51% of the Oklahoma budget is public schooling? Medicare takes up another 10, 15, 20% of the budget, and then it goes on from there. Socialist programs at the expense of our grandchildren yet to be born. And they just keep piling on the debt on unborn children. That's what we're looking at, and that's why we're in the mess we're in. If we will start to demand that end and revert back to freedom and private property ownership, then and only then will we start to revise and get back to where we need.
Anybody remember when the United States Federal Department of Education was initiated? Yeah, Carter administration. Prior to that, we didn't have a National Department of Education. And we shouldn't have one now. It is not a federal responsibility. You're absolutely right. Go ahead. I see you with the microphone back there.
Oh, I just have a comment.
Over there where I go to church, we don't even have a 501c because there are accountants who will tell you you don't need it. We do everything a church.
We do what a church does. You know, we take care of the poor, we visit the sick, we preach the gospel. whatever. And
The Great Commission.
so legal, I mean, we are the definition of a church, and we've not had any problem yet. And not only that, but we've been having church since Easter of 2020.
Yes.
And we don't wear a mask, and we don't social distance. And
And that's how it's going to stop, is people just standing up and doing what they have the right to do. Rights are not permissions.
right. And we're leaving all this debt for the unborn children, and they're killing all the unborn children. So where's that going to end?
Go ahead.
Can't we stop trying to put something in place? Like I see, so many times when we go to vote, there's an amendment, a constitutional amendment to our state constitution. Isn't there some way that we could put an amendment to our constitution that says our representatives in the state of Oklahoma can pass it, but it has to go to a vote of the people before we could join this compact? Because I think that would take away the power from those national.
I think they don't want to touch it at all. If they take any action on this compact, I'm going to bring my pitchfork and my torch.
But could that maybe stop them from that national group from even coming?
Okay.
Or is that opening Pandora's box?
It's Pandora's box.
Okay.
Have you ever printed out the Oklahoma Constitution? The Oklahoma Constitution, the state of Oklahoma Constitution.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's too large.
Okay, I have it.
On a 10-point font, single spaced, it is 229 pages. We have one of the longest constitutions in the nation, and our Constitution says that every 20 years it is to be put to a vote of the people whether or not they want to have a constitutional convention for the state of Oklahoma. Well, we could. We get all of these state questions to amend the Constitution because it ties the hands of the legislature to do anything about it. That's why. And it only takes 50%, right, to amend the Constitution? 50% plus one. But the threshold to pass a constitutional amendment in the state of Oklahoma, again, in my never to be humble opinion, is too low. It needs to be 60%. It needs to be supermajority. But our legislature is not doing their job in putting it to the vote of the people whether or not we even want to amend our Constitution. They are failing in what they are constitutionally obligated to do. They're just not doing it. They ignore it.
When I was talking about them trying to turn the state blue, there's an initiative petition right now being put forth to make marijuana recreational. Okay? Well, what it's going to take, you laugh, but they're going to have the money to pay people to come in to gather the signatures, and there are going to be enough people that are going to sign this petition to get it put on the ballot. And then if they get enough signatures, it goes into our Constitution and becomes a constitutional amendment. So it will go into our Constitution. This is how we ended up with the Medicaid expansion that we got last year. That and absentee ballots added to that. And then what was another one that we've had recently? Oh, just the medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. So people, while I love the fact that Oklahoma has a right or a way for people to be able to change the law if the legislature won't, which is through initiative petitions. It's the people, it's no longer the people that are doing it, but the industries that are doing it because they have the money to be able to pay people to come in and gather signatures. So whenever you see someone on the side of the street or you're at a fair or whatever, and they ask you to sign a petition, a lot of times they're getting $1 for every signature that they get. So this is something that we have to watch for, because next year what they're going to do is, because it's recreational marijuana, if you'll remember last year, Medicaid expansion pulled everybody out to vote. I mean, pulled people that never voted before, and this is the same thing with the recreational, and that's all they came out to vote for. So we have to be very careful about when we place stuff on a ballot and how we do it. And while Oklahoma is very generous in the fact that we have a way for us to be able to handle it, it's been co-opted by industries.
Criminal justice reform.
Yes.
Anything under $1,000 is a misdemeanor. Do you know that covers most firearms?
Yep.
Theft of a firearm in most instances now is a misdemeanor in the state of Oklahoma. My favorite story of petitioners, I'll share and then I'll take a more questions. But they were trying to get rid of constitutional carry by an initiative petition. I actually got asked to sign that initiative petition while wearing a Join or Die t-shirt and a We the People baseball hat. No joke. It's hilarious.
When are you going to run for the legislature?
Oh boy, I get asked that all the time. Here's my answer to that question. I will run for the legislature or any other office when God Almighty comes into my bedroom and writes it on the wall, like he did in Daniel.
Oh, no.
I'm just...
What if people called you and said, maybe this is your sign, Lord?
She's using my own argument against me. At this point in my life, I don't feel called in that direction. But I will tell you this. I am completely surrendered and obedient to where God wants me to be. And if that's where he wants me to be, then that's where I will go. It doesn't matter where he wants me to go, I will go. So that's
Anybody else have any other questions?
I was just wondering if you had any handouts or a web site or something that...
I can email this to you.
Okay. But
I do have it like in an essay form. I do have it in an essay form. And I can just send it to you in a Word document if you would like.
Okay.
Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, what about everybody else?
I'll
email it to Rhonda and she can post it on the website or whatever.
We'll send it out in the next email. We'll put it in the email and then that way you'll have it.
I'll give it to you.
I'll put it on Facebook also.
Here, I'll give you my email address. It's the world's easiest email address. Just email me and I'll send you whatever you want. If you want this or if you want the essay format, I'll email it to you. It's Lori.
Lori.
Lori. at LoriHendrix.com.
And that's not spelled like Jimi Hendrix.
It's not spelled like Jimi Hendrix.
It's HENDRICKS. So it's Lori, LORI, at LoriHendrix.com. But I'll have her send it to me.
Yes.
Does anybody have any other questions?
One more over here.
Everybody understands
Rhonda.
the Electoral College and how that works and why it's important? Yes, sir.
It was given to me by OCPA. This lady was a guest at the Charlie Meadows OCPAC meetings we had in Oklahoma City. Anyway, this is a comment by Edwin Meese. Edwin Meese was the Attorney General who did the pornography report. Anyway, in the book, Enlightened Democracy, The Case for the Electoral College, which is this book, it says Tara Ross, which is this lady here, has done an outstanding job of combining historical analysis with clear thinking logic. The book explains the importance of an institution that our founders regarded as one of the most excellent features of our Constitution.
Okay, so we've got we're going to wrap up if nobody has any other questions. Lori, we appreciate you very much for coming. And we can talk Convention of States sometimes. Oh, yeah. And don't forget, we've got the gala coming up. We've got lots of things that to keep you busy and involved. 2022 is right around the corner. And we got lots of elections. Our school board filing is the first week of December. So we have our elections in the middle of February. Our state house, state senate, all the others are going to be, the filing's going to be in April and the primary's going to be in June. And then for the city council for Tulsa is the only town in Tulsa County that has, or only city in Tulsa County that has city council races in 2022. All 9 are up for election, re-election. We have 3 Republicans. We've got 6 Democrats. We want to flip that. We want to make it 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats. So, or better. I mean, but that's the minimum we want. So we do plan on being very active and involved. And guys, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take phone calls. It's going to take door knocking. It's going to take text messaging. It's going to take us, but we can do it. And in 1 year, we can flip Tulsa. But it's going to take all of us working together. And so I would encourage you to figure out where you fit in and come join us, because we got lots of work to do. So until next month, I appreciate you guys coming out, and thank you, and be careful.